It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL NewsRadio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the Cougars. It's Tuesday, January 27th, and I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. The Cougars are looking to bounce back after a tough loss at home to the number one Arizona Wildcats.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
Number one Arizona, 86. Number 13 BYU, 83. BYU's 13-game home win streak comes to a close as Arizona holds off BYU's late comeback attempt to pull off a miracle win, potentially, had they pulled it off, but they come up short. Arizona, for the second consecutive year, gets a victory in the Marriott Center. And think about this, Arizona head coach Tommy Lloyd, he's now 9-3 in games played in the Marriott Center that he's been a part of. Gonzaga assistant coach and now Arizona head man. Not many men can say they've got a winning record inside the Marriott Center when you consider BYU's 81% winning percentage all time in that building. He's experienced a lot more wins than losses. Arizona, outstanding team. They are legit. There is no shame in losing to that ball club who they're just going to a higher level. You know, Braden Burries, he goes off for 29 points against BYU at the beginning of the season. I remember him in Vegas against Florida on opening night. Remember, BYU was in that doubleheader against Villanova. Arizona hammered Florida in that game. Burries was just kind of a guy. I think he had like 4 points in that game. He's just getting better and better. And like his play against BYU, he's gaining steam, getting downhill, and attacking the basket. He was outstanding. The big two of Arizona, Jaden Bradley and Braden Burries, they combined for 55 points. BYU's big three had 49. BYU's big three needed at least 70 points to win this game. They came nowhere close to that. They had an incredible run that was pure insanity to nearly pull off the comeback. I mean, they were down double digits with 1 minute to go, 10-point deficit, and they nearly pulled off the thing. And that final possession, all the craziness that happened in that final minute. I mean, flagrant one foul, maybe could have been a flagrant two, but end up being a flagrant. There was a jump ball, so many different things that went BYU's way. It looked like BYU was going to pull it off. Final shot, Rob Wright gets blocked by Burries, who had a complete game on both ends of the floor. And BYU comes up just short, 86-83, after trailing by 19 points in the game. This was KY on the final play.
I mean, it's a two-option play. And so they did a good job of taking the first option away. And, Rob got the ball, within 2 feet of the basket and felt pretty good about that. Probably a little bit more time on the clock. They collapsed. Maybe could have found something. But, Rob's a gamer. We saw it at the Garden. I trust him in those moments. Quite frankly, him and AJ, neither one of them really had it going, but those are our guys. We're going to ride and die with them. So, like I said, the first option was to get AJ the ball. They clogged the area we were trying to get it to. And then, we got the ball in Rob's hands to make a play.
Just playing hypothetical here, had BYU come up with the win and pulled off that incredible comeback, that would have been, I think, the greatest comeback in BYU basketball history. Number one team, down 10, 101 to go. I mean, that would have been absolutely bonkers had BYU pulled it off. The fact that they only lost by 3 is kind of crazy because the feel of the game just felt like Arizona was just pulling away. I mean, there were fans leaving. That under 4 timeout, it was a mass exit. The media side of the Marriott Center, I mean, it was emptying out. And there was one fan in the upper deck who screamed, "This is why you don't leave early." I agree with you. I agree. You don't leave early because you never know. There's always those stories of crazy finishes where a team's getting blown out and then the fans try to get back into the arena to see how it finishes. I think it was the Miami Heat one year where Ray Allen had a big three. I think they were down big. That was the big three era of the Miami Heat. I just remember video of Miami Heat fans outside American Airlines Arena wanting to get back into the venue. I think it was in the finals. Maybe I'm foggy memory. Anyway, that nearly happened, but BYU came up short. There were moments in the game, though. I know everyone's going to analyze that final minute and change of all the sequence of what happened. And, you know, some would say that the refs helped BYU a little bit, but I thought the officiating crew was pretty bad the whole night. That one foul where Bradley hacks AJ on the arm and there was no call. Look, Tony Padilla has a mixed history with Cougar fans. They do not like him. They do not like Tony Padilla, but that is a really good crew that was on the call last night for that game. Yet I thought it got a little bit out of hand at times. Still, there were opportunities for BYU. I'm not even pointing to the refs on this game at all because Arizona, again, they're big time. And Koa Pete, I didn't even mention him. Koa Pete, offensively, 10 points in the game, but impactful, I thought, in the game in stretches in this contest. But you go back to the first half, I thought there was a moment where BYU's up 20-18. Mihailo Boskovic knocks down a three. I thought there was a moment there for BYU to create a little bit of a cushion and get Arizona on their heels. Moo Davis, who had a big second half, he was going through his funk in that first half that had carried over from previous games. He missed a three. Then Del Orso missed a three. Moo had kind of another forced attempt, and that was a miss. And I think at that point, people are thinking, is Kennard ever going to make another three again? That was a missed opportunity, I thought, by BYU to again, get that up to 5 because 2-possession lead would have felt a little bit different going into the break with that one. There was another point in the game in the first half. BYU's up 26-24. Arizona quickly gets a 4-0 run with Burry's a mid-range bucket. That was a beautiful play. And then Jaden Bradley picks off Richie Saunders on an inbounds. And before you know it, BYU's down. And they were just up by 2 in the blink of an eye. It changed like that. And so that was a big sequence. The offsetting texts were kind of strange because you saw in the replay, you see that kick to Boop from Awaka. You're thinking this could be flagrant too. Even Fran Fraschilla on the TV calls like it's probably going to be flagrant too. Ends up being an offsetting tech on Awaka and Cada. Early in the second half, it was big when Moo ends his slump and buries a 3 to get BYU within 8. And you're sensing the momentum. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Clemson game where before the first media timeout, BYU kind of was in a manageable deficit. It wasn't 20 plus at that first media break. It felt like, okay, 4 minutes are in. You're already in this game. That was at Madison Square Garden. It had that same feeling after Moo buries that 3, and then AJ gets an opportunity to cut it to 5, and he missed it. And that was kind of the theme of the night for AJ. AJ had a difficult night. He ends up with 24 points, but he was off. Let's call it what it is. 6 of 24 from the field, and 11 of 16 from the free throw line, 1 of 8 from 3. He was missing shots. And look, Arizona's physicality, I thought, had an impact on this game. They had so many different guys that they could put out there on the floor against this BYU team. But, AJ's got to be able to hit those shots. I thought that one where, again, they're down 8 before the first media timeout. He hits that one, and they get it down to 5. I think the Marriott Center roof is blowing off at that point. And I think that's where the Marriott Center crowd is really getting some momentum in their sails. And then, moments, Jaden Bradley, he was a dog, as Kevin Young said, and Jaden Bradley had a huge game, 26 points for Bradley, who maybe a little bit of a chip on the shoulder about not being viewed as the best point guard in the Big 12 coming into the season. He was excellent in this game. Other moments in the contest that really caught my attention, slam dunk by AJ, cuts it to 10. Then on the other end, Toby Awaka gets an and 1, and Bidu Ahmed gets his 4th foul. It just, again, BYU had moments where it felt like the Marriott Center crowd's going to get back into it. The crowd's on their feet. You can sense the energy building. And then Arizona always had an answer. BYU did a good job on Arizona's bigs. They did. It was the guards that just ate BYU alive. But moments like that from Awaka, getting the and one, again, just kind of silenced things. And then later in the second half, there was a strategic, big bucket from Arizona. Tommy Lloyd instantly calls a timeout, so that momentum killer kind of stretches out into the timeout, and the energy of the crowd really is completely diffused in that moment. Again, Tommy Lloyd's a really good coach. He did a really nice job, and BYU just missed out on opportunities and couldn't knock down shots consistently enough from the big three. You like the fact that Moo Davis gives BYU a spark with a good production of 5 out of 8 from the three-point range. That's huge for Moo. And Alexei Kostic, really good. He knocks down a three, 67 to 54, 13-point deficit, but Marriott Center's crowd's getting on their feet. They're trying to get this team back into the mix, and then Arizona had an instant answer with Karchenkov for a slash to the basket to put it back up 15. Again, Arizona just always had an answer, and then Koa Pete, their last field goal of the game, 78 to 65, 3:04 to go. Shot clock's winding down. Pete hits it. It just felt like in that moment, it's Arizona's night. But then, of course, BYU had an impressive run to show some fight, and this was A.J. DiBonsa on that fight and maybe what they can learn going forward from that moment.
That we found our identity, that we're going to fight to the end. We're not going to just fold when we're down a certain amount of points. And that just proves that we can play anybody in the team if we can, hold the number one team to – we didn't hold them, but they were up big and we can fight back and come back and then make it a one-possession game. It just shows that what the possibilities of us and what we can do in the future.
Cougs again fall 86 to 83. They are now 2 losses in Big 12 play. The next up for them is Saturday against Kansas, and Kansas fans are already camped out at Allen Fieldhouse, and it's Tuesday. So massive game in Lawrence at the Fog coming up this Saturday. Let's take a break. We'll get some BYU football and BYU basketball more with the Cougars. On the other side, it's Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Every day talking BYU sports here on KSL. BYU football, we've been teasing it for a few days now. The post-portal depth chart projection for the defensive side. Last week I gave you the offensive side. Now today, going to give you the defensive side. And keep in mind, year one for Kelly Poppinga as the defensive coordinator. I'm sure there's going to be modifications to potentially names, maybe on the defensive positions, because, again, I think Kelly Poppinga wants to put his own touch onto this defense. But as he's noted, there is a good foundation in place with this defense, and why completely shake it up, especially with the amount of returning personnel returning for BYU. But here's my post-portal depth chart projection for this Cougar defense that I believe should be really good in 2026. Again, it's a new defensive coordinator, new, shakeups on the coaching staff. DeMario Warren comes in as the passing game coordinator for the defensive side, as General Guilford and Jay Hill exit for Ann Arbor to be on the Michigan Wolverines staff. Still, the expectation and the standard of what BYU has been defensively does not drop off. And with so much returning, there's going to be high expectations for this side of the ball, and for good reason. Even though you lose Jack Kelly, and that's a big loss, but as I'll lay out, you hear some of these names and the personnel, there's a lot of reason to be excited about this BYU football team on the defensive side in 2026. Again, this is a post-portal depth chart projection. We'll start on the defensive line. We'll go to the bull rusher spot, that DN position. I'm going to go with Bodie Schoonover and Viliami Pua. I'll keep it easy there. I think there could be some consideration to, some other options there as well. But I think Bodie Schoonover did a really nice job last season, and now he knows that he can perform at a high level each and every week for this BYU defense. I expect bigger things from Bodie heading into his senior year next year. Same with Viliami Pua, underrated player, can also kick inside at the defensive tackle position, and that might be the move potentially long-term for him. But I think for now, you keep him at that DN spot. retain that continuity. And keep in mind, too, BYU goes to a lot of odd fronts with this defense, but we'll kind of go with the standard 4 even front here with this projection. Nose tackle position, we'll go with Keanu Tanavasa, clearly. He's going to be the returning starter. And then behind him, I'll go Uluave Fetuli, recent convert to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints during his redshirt season this past year. You go back to fall camp, I thought he was kind of an impactful guy as a youngster in fall camp, and it showed itself in stretches this season where he got some snaps and was on the depth chart. Wouldn't shock me if he's in the 2 deep once again next year. There's other options too, but I'm going to go with the Uluave Fetuli as well. Defensive tackle, I think you keep it easy. Anisi Purcell, he heads into another season, second year in the program, and then Justin Kirkland as well, who redshirted last year. And hopefully Kirkland can stay healthy. Last season going into fall, after transferring in from Oklahoma State in the spring portal, he was dealing with a bit of a knee injury that limited him until that Colorado game, but he was never truly, I think, at full strength until the back half of the season. Can he be healthy and more impactful next year to potentially team up alongside Keanu Tanavasa? That'll be interesting to see. But Anisi Purcell, very good, underrated player inside the interior of that defensive line. Played with a club at the last half of the season. Purcell's a good player, and I think Tanavasa and Purcell would be a nice tandem in the interior. Outside edge, you've got a lot of intriguing options here. You can get really creative with this. You could go Anusi Taumoi-Peau. You could go Tausili Akana. You could go Hunter Clegg. I think the safe bet is you just want to play them all. You want to find a way to get them all on the field. Look, you could play Taumoi-Peau at that Sam linebacker spot. Again, you can do a lot of different things with him. If you want to go with the OE, traditional outside edge, I'll go Akana or Hunter Clegg. Either or, I'm fine with either of them. I think they're both going to be outstanding for BYU. Huge jumps I expect next season in this program for Akana and Clegg. Getting Clegg back and Akana back, those are the type of guys that maybe not so much Akana because he's already went through the portal, but Clegg's the type where he showed you enough on film that if he was someone who hit the portal, he'd have a long list of Power 4 suitors just because he gave you glimpses as a freshman coming off a mission. And the context of that, if you're familiar with how difficult it is to work your way back from missionary service as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that can be challenging. And I think that Clegg at times this past season, even in my conversation with Kelly Poppinga during bowl prep, maybe Clegg hit a little bit of a missionary wall, but he'll be a special player. Same with Akana, who the defense started to really click. And Kelly Poppinga takes over as the DC, and they've worked alongside with these guys every step of the way last season as the defensive end coach. I think that's a promising thing for this group to continue to evolve, knowing that the DC is someone that they're very familiar with already as the former defensive end coach as well. At linebacker, I think you keep it easy here. Sam linebacker, you go Isaiah Glasker at starter, Mac, Sialia-Serra, Rover, Cade Uluave to take over that Jack Kelly spot. I look at those three, and man, what a linebacking trio that is. Glasker coming back is massive, and if he can get back to full strength, because last year it was very underrated how he was navigating injuries. And when I talked to him going into the Utah game, he didn't want to use that as any sort of excuse, but it was, bangs and bruises and maybe had a little bit of an impact. Still, guy put up numbers, 66 tackles last season. Glasker, I think, will be even more impactful. Keep him healthy, and I think you can see him get back to maybe that, all Big 12, one of the top linebackers in the league status that he was at, I think, 2 years ago. This past season, maybe the standard was so high and that it was the expectation he's just going to be the best linebacker in the league. That didn't happen last season. Still, he was very good, and he runs it back for one final season. Sialia-Serra, I think, continues to trend up. And then Cade Uluave, the transfer from Cal, plug-and-play guy. You saw the photo of him in the winter conditioning that BYU football put out on social media. I just think this guy's going to be a terror. I mean, his closing speed, kind of like a Jack Kelly, great 40 time, great athlete. I think he just kind of plugs and plays in that Jack Kelly spot. And it's not, I don't want to say the machine continues, but that's kind of the expectation now for BYU. When one guy goes, you find a adequate replacement. You hope that he's going to be better than the previous one. And that's going to be the task in front of Cade Uluave. The backups, and again, I bring up Nusi Taumaipeau here at Sam, but again, he could play edge rusher. I mean, he can do so many different things, but I'm going to put him there as kind of a, almost like that fourth guy, because if you go with 4 linebackers, Nusi Taumaipeau, you're going to work him into the mix. Behind Siali Asera at Mac, I'll go with Pearson Watson. Very bullish on the future of Pearson Watson. Saw some big moments in fall camp last year. He had one of the best hits I've ever seen in a fall camp since working at KSL since 2019. Usually you don't see these violent hits. He had a big hit in camp last year. I thought that was great to see. And at Rover, backup, I'm going to go Ace Kafusi as well. You stretch out the linebackers to maybe 8 guys. I'd then add Miles Hall and Ephraim Asiata. There's a lot of depth in that linebacking unit for BYU. So much talent there. Again, you think about an Ephraim Asiata, dealing with a little bit of a hand injury last year, redshirt season. He's going to be a redshirt sophomore, 3rd year in the program. What leap can he take? And he's someone with maybe low expectations going into next year, but super talented guy. And I bring that up because the 2nd, 3rd units, they're getting deeper, more talented. You're seeing that with BYU football. When you're trying to chase the playoff, sometimes the challenge in front of you to get to the playoff is withstanding injuries. And if you do need to deal with injuries, do you have the personnel to just plug and play and still have the high level of expectation and play continue? Someone like an Ephraim Asiata is very intriguing for BYU. And I think that switch to the Sam linebacker spot is good for him. But like Nusi Taumaipeau, can do a lot of different things in BYU's defense. In the secondary at strong safety, Faletau Satualo, 2nd team All-American this past year. Pretty easy there. Massive get for the Cougars. One of the best safeties in the Big 12, I think, next year. That's going to be the expectation for him. Free safety, Raider Damuni. That's a great safety tandem for BYU on the back end of the defense. Nickel, Jonathan Cabella, and then Cannon DeVries are the top 2 guys that I'll go with for BYU there. Keep in mind, too, with safety, you've also got Tommy Parasis and then Matthias Leach and Kenan Pula as well. I think there's a lot of talent there for BYU, but I'm going to go with Tommy Parasis is that 3rd safety who can really play either or one of those spots. And look, he was dealing with a little bit of an injury last year. He was asked and thrown into the fire at nickel early in the season. Parasis is a really good player. BYU's got options there at safety. And Matthias Leach, underrated guy, one to watch in the future. I think Matthias Leach is going to be a really good player for BYU heading into his 3rd season in the program as a redshirt sophomore. Kind of that developmental type of player that BYU has hit it out of the park with. There's been low pressure on him, just kind of learn, develop behind the scenes, look for a leap potentially. He's a good athlete, Matthias Leach. So I've got him in the 2 deep along with Parasis. And then that 5th guy, I'll go with a freshman in Kenan Pula from Lone Peak because he's the type of athlete that he's going to push and try to be in that depth chart, I would expect, for BYU in 2026. At cornerback, we'll go with Evan Johnson and Trey Alexander. Let's make that easy. Evan Johnson, big-time addition. I mean, he's getting in some way too early rankings as a top 100 player in college football next season. And then Trey Alexander. I mean, he cemented himself as one of the top corners last season. He's going to be hard to keep off the field going forward. Him and Evan Johnson are a great 1-2 tandem at cornerback. And then that 3rd guy is probably Mississippi State transfer Javen Williams, and gives you that versatility to have a 3rd guy to come in and give a breather for the top 2 corners in Johnson and Alexander. And then that 4th cornerback, I'll go with Jordan Chris, who I was really singing the praises of kind of the growth that he was taking behind the scenes in bowl practices in December. I think he's going to be a really good player for BYU in the future and a name to watch for the Cougars in the future. Redshirt freshman at Arlington, Texas. He'll be a good one for the Cougars in the future. At punter, because we got to work in the special teams as well. We'll go Sam Vanderhaar and Fuller Shirts. Haven't seen anything official on Sam Vanderhaar. Going to keep him in the eligibility pool for BYU because he's got 1 year of eligibility remaining, even though he went through senior day last November. We'll go with Sam Vanderhaar as the punter and then Fuller Shirts as the backup punter. Both guys got starts last season. Remember, Vanderhaar had that tough outing against Texas Tech, and then it was revealed he dealt with an injury. Fuller Shirts got the start the following week against TCU. It wasn't pretty in his one start for Shirts, but Vanderhaar and Shirts would be the top two expectations there at punter for the Cougars in 2026. But that's your post-portal depth chart for BYU football for 2026. Share with me your thoughts on that. Let me know in the comments, and you can also get at me at Mitch_Harper on X. Final time out of the show. Going to be talking BYU basketball as the Cougars hosted a big-time recruit. We'll discuss that next here on Cougar Tracks. It's powered by KSL Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper here with you. BYU basketball last night falls to the Arizona Wildcats 86-83. Tough night for the Cougars, dropping a home game at the Marriott Center, ending a 13-game home winning streak for the Cougars. But on the positive side, BYU basketball was hosting a big-time recruit, Bruce Branch, the third five-star recruit in the class of 2026. He was visiting BYU last night at the game on an official visit with the Cougars. Bruce Branch, one of the top prospects in this cycle, reclassified from 2027 to 2026. And Bruce Branch, when he was in the 2027 cycle, he was the number one rated recruit in the country for that class. Now he comes to BYU on a visit, and he's one of the top guys in the 2026 class. And if BYU could land him, that would be a massive get for the Cougars if they can land the services of Bruce Branch, with April being the signing period. Will he choose the Cougars? He's got a long list of suitors. Kansas, Houston, Kentucky, the who's who in college basketball. But hey, BYU on the recruiting trail is becoming one of the who's who. If not, they've arrived as one of the who's who in recruiting trails, because when you get an AJ DeBonsa, when you're getting visits from a Bruce Branch, you're a who's who. You are a place that high-profile prospects want to check out. And look, it's an easy comp, but Bruce Branch, you would assume, would be the AJ replacement if they got Bruce Branch to sign with BYU. There's been some comparisons to his game with some of the ones that AJ has been drawing comparisons to as well. But, Bruce Branch is a heralded prospect, but that's a big deal for BYU to have gotten a visit from him. So we'll see how his recruitment continues to evolve over the coming months in the countdown to April signing period for college basketball. And BYU, of course, has three players on the board for the 2026 cycle. Dean Rickert, number 75 recruit in the 24/7 Sports rankings, 4-star, 6'8", 179 pounds, having a really good season at Timpview High School, along with his Timpview running mate Will Openshaw, 6'10", 195. He was on a visit during the Utah game, was Openshaw. And then KJ Perry, who's already on the team this year, redshirting, but going to be part of the program officially on the court next season. And sometimes you get to see him in the early pregame warmups, and he's explosive. KJ Perry is a lot of fun to watch. I'll be curious to see what he can become for BYU. Number one JUCO recruit in the country, a combo guard. And what's cool about him, too, is I swear I see him all the time on Bucket Squad, the YouTube channel. It's not Jesser. It's the Jesser's Friends YouTube channel. He's always in those videos. So maybe when I get the chance to chat with KJ Perry, I'll ask him about being on those popular YouTube videos. My boys love anything like basketball on YouTube, so Bucket Squad, that sort of realm or wormhole of YouTube. They love that, and KJ Perry always kind of pops up on some of those videos, so that's pretty fun to see. BYU basketball, after the loss to Arizona, did fall in Joe Lunardi's bracketology. BYU drops to a 4 seed in the bracket, and that's not the end-all be-all with what the bracket is going to look like when it's rolled out in March, but it is noteworthy that BYU drops a seed line. The good news is that so many opportunities in the Big 12 to bounce back in a hurry and climb that seed line. And you think about the big games, the quad 1A games that BYU has remaining. So basically top 15, top 20 games against teams in the net at Kansas this Saturday. Houston on February 7th. That's the next home game. Arizona on February 18th in the McHale Center. Iowa State in Provo, February 21st. And then Texas Tech to close out the regular season on March 7th. I think you need to win at least 3 games in that 5 to comfortably be maybe a 3 seed. If you can win 4 out of those 5 and take care of business in the other games, you could be maybe in a 2 seed territory, but you got to get some of these wins against a quad 1A team to really start to climb the seed lines and be viewed in that 3 seed, 2 seed territory for BYU when it comes to brackets. We got a full roundup of bracketology up on KSLSports.com. But that's going to do it for this edition, Tuesday edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Appreciate all of you for always listening to Cougar Tracks every single day. I will talk to you tomorrow right here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSLSports.com.